The market was loud, filled with the sound of voices shouting, chains rattling, and footsteps on the hard stone ground. Smoke and dust hung in the air. In the center of it all stood the alien girl, her wrists bound with iron cuffs. Her eyes darted nervously from one human buyer to another. She had heard the stories humans were cruel masters, buyers who broke their slaves for amusement. She trembled as merchants shouted about her price. Strong body, one trader barked. She can work long hours. Obedient. Another lied, tugging her chain. The girl lowered her eyes, her heart pounding. She was not obedient. She was terrified. Terrified of what would come next. When she saw him, her chest tightened. A human, older, his hair touched with gray. His face, calm but unreadable. He walked slowly through the market, ignoring most of the noise. His gaze finally fell on her. The girl froze. His eyes were steady, and she could not read them. Not anger, not cruelty, but not kindness either. Steady, heavy, as if weighing her soul. The trader rushed forward eagerly. "You want this one? She is strong. She will serve well." The human did not argue. He placed a pouch of credits in the trader's hand. Just like that, she was his. Her stomach twisted. Her heart sank. It is true, she thought. He bought me. And now the pain begins. Chains rattled as the trader shoved her toward him. The human caught her arm gently but firmly. Without a word, he led her out of the market. Every step was heavy. The girl kept her head low, afraid to meet his eyes. Fear filled her chest. She remembered other slaves' warnings. Some humans torture for pleasure. Some keep slaves only to break them. Run if you can. But her legs refused to move. They reached his dwelling quieter and cleaner than the filthy market. She expected chains, a whip, or at least harsh orders. Instead, he released her arm and stepped aside, letting her enter first. She hesitated. Why? Why would a master allow a slave to walk freely before him? Inside, the room was simple. A table, a chair, a sleeping mat in the corner. She stood trembling, waiting for his command. Her heart beat so loud it echoed in her ears. But he said nothing. Minutes passed. The silence was worse than shouting. She could not bear it. Her voice broke as she whispered, "What? What do you want me to do?" The human finally looked at her, his gray eyes calm. "Sit," he said softly. She obeyed quickly, her body shaking. She expected chains on her ankles, punishment for hesitation. Instead, he placed a small bowl of food in front of her. Bread, water, nothing fancy, but fresh. Her eyes widened. She looked at the bowl, then at him, confused. Her voice cracked. "This? For me?" "Yes," he replied simply. Her chest tightened. Suspicion rose. "It's a trick," she told herself. "He wants me to eat, so I will have strength for torture later." She touched the bread with trembling fingers, but did not eat. The human did not force her. He simply sat in the chair across from her, watching quietly, not staring like the traders. Not with hunger or cruelty in his eyes, just watching. Waiting. The girl could not stand it. She whispered again, "Why did you buy me?" For a long time, he did not answer. His silence pressed against her chest like a weight. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. "To keep you safe." She blinked, confused. The words did not make sense. Safe? No master spoke of safety. No master cared for a slave. She shook her head quickly. No, that is a lie. Humans do not save. Humans. Her voice broke. Humans hurt. The human did not argue. He only leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "You will learn," he said softly. The girl's hands tightened around the bread. Fear battled with confusion inside her. She wanted to scream, to run, to believe nothing he said. Yet a small, dangerous spark of hope flickered inside her chest. She tried to crush it quickly. Hope was more dangerous than chains. Hope always led to heartbreak. Still, as she sat trembling in that quiet room, eating bread she had not expected, she realized one thing. This human was not what she expected, and that frightened her more than anything else. K. The human's calm the first night passed slowly. The alien girl did not sleep. She lay on the mat in the corner, her eyes wide open, staring at the shadows on the wall. Every sound made her flinch, the creak of wood, the wind outside, the quiet steps of the human moving in the next room. She waited for the pain to come, for the command, for the moment when he would show his true face. That was what masters always did. Kindness was only a mask, but the hours slipped by, and nothing happened. When dawn came, she sat up quickly, her heart pounding. She expected him to storm in with chains. Instead, he entered quietly, carrying a cup of warm water. He set it down beside her mat. "Drink," he said simply. She looked at the cup suspiciously. Was it a test? Was it poisoned? Slowly, with trembling hands, she lifted it. The water was clean, fresh. It warmed her throat as she drank. Her eyes flicked up at him nervously. "Why?" she whispered. He only shrugged. "Because you were thirsty." Words confused her more than chains ever could. The day passed in silence. He gave her simple tasks, sweeping the floor, folding cloth, carrying small things. Nothing cruel, nothing heavy. When she hesitated, she braced herself for punishment. But no punishment came. He simply waited until she tried again. Her chest stayed tight with fear, but confusion began to creep in. At midday, he placed another bowl of food in front of her, grain and fruit. She stared at it for a long time before whispering, "Do you not eat first?" "I ate already," he said calmly. That was another shock. Masters always took first. Slaves ate only scraps. Yet here, she ate while he simply sat across from her, quiet and steady. She lowered her eyes, whispering, "I don't understand you." "You don't need to," he replied softly. But she wanted to, and that frightened her even more. That night, the silence grew heavier. She sat curled on her mat, watching him from the corner of her eye. He sat at the table, reading a small book, the light from a lantern casting shadows across his face. Finally, her voice broke the silence. "Why do you not chain me?" He looked up, calm as ever. "Do you want chains?" Her breath caught. "No." "Then why would I use them?" She stared at him, speechless. In every world she had known, chains were normal. Chains meant ownership. Chains meant control. His words made no sense. She whispered again, "What if I run?" He closed the book. Slowly, his gray eyes meeting hers. "Then you run." She froze. You would let me." His voice was steady. "I will not stop you, but I hope you stay." Her chest tightened painfully. She turned her face away, hiding the tears burning her eyes. Mercy was harder to carry than cruelty. Cruelty was expected. Mercy was unbearable. The following days followed. The same rhythm. He never shouted. He never struck her. He gave her space, let her eat, let her rest. Sometimes he asked for help with small things. Sometimes he said nothing at all. It was his silence that frightened her most. Not cold silence, but patient silence. Silence that made her wonder what he was thinking. Silence that made her wonder. If he saw more than she wanted to show, she told herself it was a trick. She told herself he was waiting for the right moment to hurt her. But with each passing day, her fear grew heavier and her certainty weaker. One evening, she finally asked, The question that had burned inside her since the market. Why did you buy me? The human didn't answer right away. He looked out the window at the fading light, his expression unreadable. Finally, he said, "Because I could not leave you there." Her heart skipped. She shook her head quickly. "No, that is not true. No master cares about that." "I am not a master," he said softly. Her voice cracked. "Then what are you?" He met her eyes, calm and steady. "Someone who doesn't want to see you suffer." The girl's throat tightened. She wanted to believe. She wanted to trust. But trust was dangerous. Trust was a blade that cut deeper than any chain. So she whispered the only truth she knew. "I am afraid of you." The human nodded once, as if he expected the words. His voice remained calm. "Then be afraid. Until you are not." She stared at him in silence, trembling. That night, she cried quietly into her mat. Not because of pain, but because she didn't understand what was happening to her. The human had not touched her, had not broken her, had not mocked her, and yet her heart felt more unsteady than it ever had in chains. For the first time, she wondered if she was wrong. For the first time, she wondered if mercy was possible. And that thought terrified her more than anything else. The small kindness, the days passed slowly, but not in the way she expected. The alien girl had been ready for chains, for cruelty, for punishment at every step. That was the life she knew, the life she had seen for others like her. But this human did none of those things. He gave her food each morning, plain but fresh. He let her drink clean water whenever she wished. At night, he allowed her to sleep in the corner of his room, not in a cage, not outside in the cold. It confused her. It frightened her more than pain ever had, because pain, she understood. Cruelty, she expected, but kindness, that was a trap. On the third morning, she sat quietly by the small table, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The human placed a piece of bread before her, as he had each day. He did not speak, only gave a small nod before sitting across from her. Her eyes stayed on the bread. Her fingers trembled. She wanted to eat, but fear whispered inside her. Maybe he poisons it. Maybe he only feeds me so I am stronger for work. Or worse, she did not move. The human noticed. His gray eyes studied her, calm, patient. Finally, he broke his own bread and ate it slowly in front of her. Only then did she touch hers, nibbling small pieces like a frightened animal. The human said nothing. He simply ate in silence. That silence pressed heavy on her chest. She burst out suddenly, her voice shaking. "Why do you feed me?" He looked up, surprised at her words. His voice was steady when he answered. "Because you are hungry." She blinked, confused. Hungry slaves are still useful. They still work. He shook his head. A hungry slave is not free. A fed one is closer. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Free? What did he mean? She wanted to ask, but fear closed her throat. That evening, when the sun lowered, she carried water back from the well. Her hands shook from the heavy jar. She stumbled near the doorway, spilling water across the ground. Her heart froze. She dropped to her knees at once, pressing her forehead low. Now it comes, she thought. The beating, the shouting, the pain, but no hand struck her. No whip cracked. Instead, she felt the weight of the jar lifted from her arms. She looked up, stunned. The human was crouched beside her, steady hands lifting the jar as though it were nothing. His face was calm, his voice soft. "Be careful. You will hurt yourself." She stared at him in disbelief. You are not angry?" He shook his head. "It was water. Water can be fetched again. You cannot." Her chest tightened painfully. No one had ever spoken to her that way. She almost wished he had struck her, would have made more sense, would have matched the world she knew. This was more dangerous, because kindness could be taken away. That night, lying on her mat, she curled tightly into herself. Tears pricked her eyes, but she did not let them fall. He cannot be real, she told herself. Humans are cruel. They always are. This will end. He will change. I must not believe. And yet, a small part of her wanted to. The next morning, she woke to find something folded neatly beside her mat. Clean clothes. Simple, but soft, free of dirt and chains. Her hands shook as she picked them up. She looked across the room. The human was already preparing food, as if it were nothing. She whispered, For me. He nodded. Yours. Her throat closed. Why? His gray eyes lifted. His voice was calm. Because you deserve more than rags. She could not breathe. She clutched the fabric tightly, staring at him. Her heart pounded with confusion, fear, and something else she could not name. That day, she wore the clothes. She expected laughter, mockery, some cruel trick. But the human said nothing. He only looked at her once, nodded slightly, and continued his work. It was not mockery. It was not control. It was respect, and that terrified her most of all. Because respect was a gift she had never been given. For the first time in her life, she began to wonder, what if this human is different? What if mercy is real? She shook the thought from her head. It could not be true. It must not be true. But that night, as she lay on her mat in clean clothes, her stomach full and her body unchained, she felt something she had not felt in years. Hope, small, fragile. Dangerous but alive, Astra's trust tested the days turned into a quiet rhythm. Food in the morning, work in the afternoon. Silence in the evening. The human never raised his voice, never lifted his hand, never chained her. But the girl's fear had not disappeared. It clung to her like a second skin. Every kindness felt like a trap waiting to snap shut. Every silence felt like the pause before punishment. She tried to keep her head down, tried to move carefully. But fear makes hands clumsy, and on the seventh day, her mistake came. She was carrying a wooden bowl of hot stew to the table. Her hands trembled and the bowl slipped. It struck the edge, tipped, and spilled across the floor. The rich smell of food filled the room as the liquid spread dark and steaming across the ground. She froze. Her breath caught in her chest. Her body shook violently as she dropped to her knees, bowing low until her forehead pressed against the floor. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I'm sorry, I will clean it. I will lie, didn't mean to, please." She waited for the blow, for the chain, for the scream of anger. Every muscle in her body prepared for pain, but no pain came. Instead, she heard only the soft scrape of a chair, footsteps. Then the sound of another bowl being set gently on the table. She lifted her head slightly, confused. The human was kneeling beside her, already cleaning the spill with a cloth. His face calm, his movements steady. Her heart raced faster. "Why? Why are you doing that?" "That was my mistake." He glanced at her, his gray eyes steady. "Because mistakes happen." Her lips parted. She shook her head quickly. "No, not for slaves. Mistakes bring punishment." His hand paused for a moment on the cloth, then continued. His voice was quiet but firm. "Not here." Her chest ached. She pressed her hands tightly to the floor. Tears pricked her eyes, though she tried to hold them back. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I was told slaves must never fail, or they suffer." The human sat back on his heels, the cloth in his hand. He studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable, but not cruel. Finally, he said, "Then they lied to you." The words struck harder than any whip. Blinked, stunned. Lied? Yes, he said. They taught you fear so you would obey. They told you pain was the only answer, but it is not truth. Her hands trembled against the floor. Then why are you different? He leaned back, folding the cloth neatly. His eyes never wavered. Because you are not a tool. You are not a thing to be broken. You are someone. Her throat closed. She wanted to speak, but her voice was gone. The human rose to his feet and offered his hand. For a moment, she stared at it in disbelief. Slowly, trembling, she placed her own in his. His grip was firm, but gentle, lifting her to her feet. Eat, he said simply, nodding to the fresh bowl of food he had placed on the table. She sat slowly, still shaking, and ate in silence. Each bite burned with confusion. Why was he like this? Why did he not punish her? Why did he not hate her? That night, she lay awake long after the human had fallen asleep. The room was quiet except for his steady breathing. Her mind was a storm. She thought of other masters she had known, of chains and cages, of lashes across her skin. And then she thought of this one gray-haired, calm, steady. He had bought her. Yes, but instead of chains, he gave her food. Instead of whips, he gave her clothes. Instead of pain, he gave her patience. Her heart twisted painfully. Which was worse? To be beaten as expected or to be given mercy that made no sense? Because mercy was dangerous. Mercy planted seeds of trust, and trust was the one thing she feared most. Still, the memory of his hand lifting her from the floor would not leave her. The steady grip, the calm eyes, the words, "You are someone." For the first time, she let the tears fall freely. Silent tears. Not of pain, not of punishment, but of something far more frightening. Hope. The next morning, she rose early. Without waiting for him, she cleaned the floors, fetched water, and prepared the table. Her movements were careful, but steady, her hands less clumsy. When the human entered, he paused, watching her work. His lips curved slightly, not a mocking smile, but something quiet. Approval. Her chest warmed in a way she could not explain. She bowed her head quickly to hide her face. He said nothing. He only sat and ate the food she placed before him. But in that silence, she felt something new between them. Not chains, not fear, not cruelty. Trust, small, fragile, tested but alive, and once born, trust could only grow. Conflict and rumors. Trust, once born, is fragile, and fragile things can be broken easily. The girl had begun to breathe more freely. She no longer jumped at every movement. She no longer flinched when he entered the room. She even caught herself humming softly while cleaning the floor one morning. It felt dangerous, but also warm. Yet outside their small dwelling, the world was not silent. Whispers traveled faster than wind in the colony. Traders, guards, and slaves alike spoke when they thought no one listened, and the girl heard them. "She thinks he is different," one slave hissed as they carried water together. "She will see the truth soon enough," another muttered. "Humans always show their real face." A guard laughed cruelly. "Kindness, huh? They soften you first, then break you harder. That one will learn." The girl's hands trembled around her jar. She said nothing, but the words cut deep. That night, as she lay on her mat in clean clothes, she remembered their voices. Kindness is a trap. Kindness is only the chain before the whip. She curled tighter, tears burning her eyes. She wanted to believe in him, the human who gave her food, clothes, and patience. But what if they were right? What if all of it was only preparation for something worse? The next day, the human asked her to accompany him to the market. Her chest tightened. She hated the market, the noise, the smells, the eyes of traders. But she obeyed silently, walking half a step behind him, Her head bowed as they passed. Whispers followed. Their one voice said, "The slave girl who thinks her human is kind. Look how she walks behind him, frayed like all the rest. Wait until he tires of her, then she will know pain." Her stomach twisted. Her steps grew heavy. The human glanced back once, his gray eyes steady, but said nothing. His silence was like a shield, but the whispers pierced through anyway. At one stall, another human trader sneered loudly, loud enough for all to hear. Strange, isn't it? A man his age buying one so young. Do you think he feeds her out of kindness or something else? The laughter that followed was sharp, cruel, and full of poison. The girl's face burned hot. Shame spread through her chest like fire. She bowed her head lower, trembling, but the human did not react. He simply paid for the goods, lifted the bag, and walked calmly away. His silence was steady, unshaken. Yet to her, his silence was not. Protection it was proof. Proof that maybe he did not care at all. Proof that maybe the whispers were right. That evening, she could not meet his eyes. She sat at the table, eating quietly, her hands shaking. He watched her, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "You are afraid again." She flinched, dropping her bread. Her voice cracked. "Because they are right." He tilted his head. "Right about what?" She swallowed hard, her eyes filling with tears. "About you. About all humans. You will hurt me, won't you? You just wait for the right time. You buy me, feed me, make me trust you, and then you will break me worse than all the rest." The words tore from her like knives. Silence fell heavy. Her heart pounded in terror. She waited for his anger, his denial, his punishment. But the human did not shout. He did not strike. He simply leaned back, his gray eyes calm, though shadowed with something deeper sorrow. Finally, he said, "I cannot erase what they did to you. I cannot silence the whispers, but I can show you the truth." Her tears spilled down her cheeks. "Truth? What truth?" "That not all humans are the same," he said softly. "That mercy is not a trick. That I chose to protect you, not to break you." She shook her head violently. "But how do I know that? How do I know you will not change tomorrow?" His eyes did not waver. His voice was steady. "Because I will not." The simplicity of the words stunned her. No long explanation. No promises of gold or freedom. Just calm certainty. "I will not." Still, the whispers gnawed at her. Days passed, and each time she went outside, she heard them. "Wait until he shows his real face. He is only patient now. Later, he will strike. She will see." "Always do." The words stuck like thorns in her chest. One evening, when the human asked her to help carry wood, her body refused. She shook her head quickly, whispering, "No. If I make a mistake again, you will punish me." He frowned, confused. "Why would I?" Her voice cracked. "Because they said, you will." His eyes darkened, not with anger at her, but with anger at the unseen voices. He set the wood down slowly and stepped closer. "They do not know me," he said firmly. "They cannot speak my truth. Only I can." She trembled, unable to hold his gaze. But his voice did not rise, did not break. "You must choose whom to believe," he continued softly. "Their lies or my actions." Her breath shook. I don't know how." He studied her for a long moment. Then, gently, he placed a hand over his chest. "Watch me. If my words ever fail my actions, then you may fear me. But, until then, trust what I do, not what they say." That night, as she lay on her mat, she thought of every moment since he had bought her. He had fed her, clothed her, protected her. When she spilled the stew, he had not struck. When others mocked, he had stayed calm. The whispers said humans could not change, but his actions said otherwise. Her heart was torn. Fear whispered louder. But hope, fragile and trembling, was still alive, and for the first time she wondered if maybe, just maybe, the human's mercy was not a trick at all. The turning point: public defiance. The day of reckoning came sooner than she expected. The colony square was alive with noise traders shouting, buyers haggling, slaves being led on chains from one stall to another. The girl walked silently behind, her human master carrying a small basket of supplies. Her head was low, as always, though her eyes flicked nervously at the people around her. She heard the whispers before she saw their faces. There she is, the slave who thinks her human is kind. Look at her. She really believes she is safe. Wait until he shows his real side. Then she'll learn. The girl's chest tightened. Every word sank into her skin like thorns. Then came a louder voice, cruel and sharp. Traitor, broad-shouldered, and smirking, stepped forward. His eyes locked on her, and his smile spread like poison. So this is the one you bought, he said to the human, his voice mocking. Strange choice. She looks weak, afraid, hardly worth the credits you spent. The girl froze, clutching the basket tighter. Her breath came short. The trader stepped closer, circling her like a predator. Tell me, human, do you feed her so she can serve better? Or do you keep her soft for other reasons? Laughter erupted around the square. Cruel, cutting, merciless. The girl's face burned hot with shame. She lowered her head even further, trembling. Her worst fear was spoken, aloud for all to hear. She wanted the ground to open and swallow her whole. But then silence fell. The human had stepped forward. His tall frame cast a shadow across the trader. His gray eyes were cold, sharp as steel. Enough, he said, his voice steady but carrying. Across the square like thunder, the laughter died at once. All eyes turned. The trader sneered, Enough. Why, human? Do my words strike too close to truth? The human did not flinch. He did not look away. Your words are nothing but filth. You see only weakness, because that is all you are able to see. But I will tell you what I see. The crowd grew silent. The girl's heart pounded painfully. The human turned slowly, his gaze falling on her. Not harsh, not cruel, but steady, calm, and filled with something she could not name. I see someone who has suffered more than most of you could endure. I see someone who is taught to fear, yet still breathes. I see strength. I see survival. And I see beauty. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The word beauty echoed like lightning. The girl's eyes widened, tears stinging instantly. Her lips trembled. No one had ever spoken such words about her, never. But the human was not finished. He stepped closer, his voice rising. You mock her because you cannot break her. You laugh because you are blind, but I will not laugh. I will not break. I will not be silent. She is mine not as property, not as chains, but as someone I choose to protect. The square was still now. Even the wind seemed to hush the trader's face twisted with anger. You speak as if she is equal. She is not. She is a slave, nothing more. The human's eyes burned with fire. A case. He stepped forward until he stood nose to nose with the trader. His voice was low, deadly calm. Then, you are the blind one. Because I see her worth, even if you never will. The trader faltered, his smirk fading. He looked around, expecting laughter, support. But the crowd was silent, stunned by the human's words. The girl stood frozen, her chest heaving. Her trembling hands clutched the basket tighter, tears streaming. Silently down her cheeks, the human turned back to her. He reached out slowly, deliberately, and took the basket from her shaking hands. Then, to the shock of all, he set it aside and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "You are safe," he said softly, his voice meant only for her. "No one will harm you while I still breathe." Her knees almost gave way. She looked up at him, eyes wide, lips trembling. "Why? Why do you do this?" She whispered. His eyes softened, though his voice carried enough for all to hear. "Because mercy is stronger than chains. Because you deserve more than fear. Because you are not nothing. You are someone." The crowd was silent. Some shifted uncomfortably. Others stared, stunned. None dared laugh now. The traitor spat on the ground and turned away, muttering curses, but he did not speak again. His power was gone, broken by words stronger than his mockery. The human guided the girl away from the square, his hand steady on her shoulder. As they walked, her tears fell freely. Her voice shook as she whispered, "I don't understand." "You could have stayed silent. You could have let them laugh. Why speak for me?" He glanced at her, his expression calm but firm. "Because silence is how cruelty grows. And I will not be silent while they try to break you." Her heart ached. Her chest felt both heavy and light. The whispers of fear still echoed inside her. But louder now was his voice. Strength, beauty, someone. That night, as she lay on her mat, she pressed her hands over her face, sobbing quietly. But for the first time, they were not tears of fear. They were tears of something new. She whispered. "Into the darkness, maybe he truly means it." And for the first time, she let herself believe just a little. Love that changed everything. The colony square was behind them, but its echo remained. For the alien girl, the memory of that moment would never fade. The human standing tall, his voice carrying through the crowd, declaring she was not a thing. Not a slave, but someone. All her life, she had been taught the opposite. She was property, she was weak, she was nothing. And yet, in front of all, he had said otherwise. That night, she could not sleep. She lay on her mat, staring at the ceiling, her mind storming with thoughts. Her body shook as tears rolled silently down her face. But they were not the same tears she had cried before. They were not born of fear. They were born of something far more dangerous: hope. The next morning, she woke early. For the first time, she moved without fear in her hands. She swept the floor, fetched water, and placed food on the table. She did not do it out of fear of punishment, but because she wanted to. The human entered quietly, his gray eyes studying her. He noticed the change at once: the way she stood taller, the way her hands no longer trembled. "You rise early," he said softly. She lowered her head slightly, but not in shame. "I wish to help." His lips curved faintly, a small smile that warmed the cold morning air. "Then, thank you." Her chest tightened at the simple words. No master had ever thanked her. No master had ever spoken to her as if she mattered. But even with hope growing, the battle inside her had not ended. The whispers of the past still clung to her mind. She could not erase years of pain with a single act of mercy. Later that day, she found herself standing before a mirror, one she had avoided since she came. She stared at her reflection, the scars across her arms, the thinness of her body, the hollowness in her eyes. The voices of the past hissed in her ears. "You are nothing. You are weak. You are unworthy." Her hands trembled. Tears burned. Then she remembered the sound of his voice in the square. "I see strength. I see beauty. You are someone." Her lips parted. "Us," she whispered to her reflection, as if testing. The words, "someone." The reflection did not change. But inside, something shifted. That evening, she sat by the river outside the colony. The water flowed steadily, the stars shimmering above. She pulled her knees to her chest, whispering to herself, "Can I truly believe him? Can I trust? Or is this only another lie?" She did not hear his footsteps, but she felt his presence. The human sat beside her, silent at first. The two of them listened to the sound of the river. At last he spoke. "You sit here often." She nodded. "It is quiet and safe." He asked gently. She thought for a moment, then whispered, "With you? Yes?" His gaze softened. He turned slightly to face her. "You doubt me still." Her throat tightened. "I want to believe you," she whispered, "but I am afraid. If I trust you and you change, I will break." The human leaned forward, his gray eyes steady. "Then I will not change." Her tears fell. "How can you promise that?" "'Cause mercy is not a trick," he said firmly. "Mercy is choice, and I choose it every day." The girl pressed her hands over her face, sobbing softly. For the first time, her tears were not only pain, they were release. She felt his hand rest gently on her shoulder, not forcing, not claiming, only steady, only present. "You are safe," he whispered. For the first time, she believed him. From that day forward, her life was no longer the same. She still worked, but not in chains. She still cleaned, but not in fear. She still carried water, but her hands did not tremble anymore. The other slaves whispered still, but their words no longer pierced so deep. She had proof now, living proof. Each day the human showed mercy not with promises, but with actions. He stood beside her. He spoke kindly. He listened slowly. The cracks in her heart began to heal. Weeks later, the colony faced unrest. A new traitor arrived, cruel and arrogant, mocking the weak. He eyed the girl one day and sneered. "Why does this human keep her? She is wasted here. Better to sell her again. I will give good credits." The human's jaw tightened. He stepped between the traitor and the girl, his presence firm, unshaken. "She is not for sale." The traitor laughed. "Everything is for sale." But the human's voice cut sharp as steel. "Not her. Never her." The traitor faltered. The crowd murmured. No one challenged him again. The girl watched, her chest aching with something she could not name. Gratitude, relief, and something deeper. Something she had never dared feel. That night, she whispered into the quiet room, "Why do you protect me?" The human looked at her, his face calm, but his eyes warm. "Because you deserve to live without fear. Because you are more than chains. Because I see you." Her heart swelled painfully. She lowered her head, whispering, "I don't know if I can ever repay you." He shook his head. "I do not ask for repayment. I only ask that you believe you are more than what they told you." Her lips trembled. "I will try." And she did. Seasons passed. The colony still whispered, but less than before. The girl walked straighter now. She met eyes without lowering her head. She laughed softly when she thought no one heard. The human watched quietly, never boasting, never claiming credit. His gray eyes only softened each time he saw her smile. For the first time, she was not a slave. Not in her heart. She was someone. One evening, as the sun sank red over the horizon, she turned to him, her eyes shining with quiet strength. "You changed everything," she whispered. He shook his head gently. "No, you changed when you chose to believe. I only reminded you." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they were not tears of fear or shame. They were tears of hope. She smiled, a true smile, soft and trembling. "I am not nothing," she said softly. "No," he agreed. His voice was steady, warm. "You are everything." And for the first time in her life, she believed it. The girl who once trembled in chains was gone. In her place stood someone free, not by law, but by heart, all because one human had chosen mercy instead of cruelty. All because he had chosen to see her not as property, but as person. It was mercy that saved her, mercy that healed her, mercy that changed everything, and together they would never be the same again.